Radio Spaetkauf. Berlin News in English.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 1, Season 2 of our special mini-series, Saving Culture, a collaboration between Radio Spaetkauf and the Europäische Akademie Berlin. Thank you for joining me if you're listening at home, and thank you to those of us joining us here in the studio. My name is Daniel Stern, and this mini-series this year, we're going to be tackling culture and saving it. It was last winter when we started thinking about what we were going to do, and I was starting to hear about funding cuts here in Berlin, in Germany, around the world, and it seemed grim. But I still live in a lively, vibrant city full of amazing people who are doing creative things. So over the next 4 episodes, we'll be looking at different angles of this, sort of different ways to think about how we preserve and save, how we have to adapt or how our institutions have to adapt, how we're going to preserve and how we're going to participate as well. And this isn't just about policy, it's also about the people who form our audiences, form our fan groups, just go and look at art or make it. I have 4 amazing guests today, and I want to sort of rush to get them introduced, and we'll be doing that right now. I want to start by introducing someone who comes to us from a more academic background, I would say. This guest is a social scientist and economic researcher focused on cultural and creative industries and innovations in urban environments. Since 2020, she has worked at Prognos AG, where she is a project manager and recently co-authored a report titled Study zur wirtschaftlichen und sozialen Lage von solosbeständigen und hybrid Erwerbstätigen in der Kultur- und Kreativwirtschaft, KKW, dem öffentlichen Kulturbetrieb und Kulturberufen in Deutschland. Here to tell us what that means and, more importantly, what it's all about. A warm welcome for Bianca Creutz.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Yeah, the name was not our idea. It was the government gave us this tasks to do. So we're very happy that we could fulfill it. So I try briefly explain what it was about. So
okay.
It's mainly about in the culture and creative industries, there are many solo entrepreneurs, but there's little knowledge about how they actually are, because they have usually solo entrepreneurs, so they don't have any employees. That's the difference between if you're an entrepreneur or a solo entrepreneur.
So the idea is to define these creative arts people as a solo entrepreneur, meaning a self-employed person who is trying to either make money or sustain themselves at the very least.
Exactly. And mostly people are freelancing in the culture and creative industries, and there are many, or there are more than usual in the all over economic. So it's hard to get data on them, because they're in Germany you would say they are viele, so there are many, because they're in so many jobs, they have so many projects, so it's hard to grasp them.
So it's a very, I think the phrase is heterogeneous population, right? So everyone's got a very unique situation, which makes sort of statistical.
Exactly, and then you have you find some statistics here, you find some statistics there, but then they don't correspond with each other. So what we were trying to pool this data together, and we also had a survey where people could fill out our questionnaire and answer questions about their social security, about their income, and so on. And then we put everything together, and I think we made a quite interesting study.
Yeah,
in the end.
Interesting and at times terrifying. You said social security. I think, is there savings for retirement for people who are? I mean, I know I'm not.
Well, I think it starts when people are getting into into culture. They don't think about that. They probably will stay forever in culture, and then in the end they stay, and then they have little income. So and little incomes results in little pensions. So yeah, that's basically in our study we found out that the median pension is around 600 euros, like coming from this income, from this cultural income.
600 euros per
600 per month. Sorry,
per month
per month. Yeah. And we found out that 80% believe that the pension will not be sufficient for retirement, which is kind of logical. Mm-hmm. And 40% said that they have no savings beside their pensions for retirement, which is also, like you said, the word terrifying.
40%, yeah.
40% of the people that we asked, like who answered the questionnaire, among the solo entrepreneurs. But it's a quite high number, yeah.
All right. We'll go back to some of these numbers
Sure.
and continue the conversation. The doors of Panke were first opened in the summer of 2011. The cultural space, collectively run by the members of the nonprofit Verein, has evolved and expanded over the years on a mission of promoting experimental, fringe creativity and offering an alternative meeting point for the up-and-coming creatives. Please welcome to the show Panke co-founder Erikah Vabaliukas.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your invitation. It's an honor to be here. So, shortly about Panke, it's multi-purpose place because 15 years ago, inventing to do something, let's say, similar to what happened in the central places of Berlin was pretty naive. So we were trying to do pretty packed program, but every day and very diverse, with a gallery, like exhibitions, screenings, concerts, parties, bar, beer garden, and things like this. And with the years, of course, we now gathered very diverse program in the music, also art.
Yeah, I mean, when I open up like your events calendar, it's like things that seem unimaginably new and cutting edge meme parties, and then more established artists and music, and it seems like it feels like it's for everyone or everyone outside
so
of.
We have like in the contract also written, so we do not support Berlin mainstream culture like techno and minimal. So we don't support four to the floor. And that's also in the contract. So
is the words "four to the floor" in the contract? Really?
Yes. So we support all kinds of break music, a lot of electronic, but so it's like natural that it became into more listening place, not like a party place, and people really come.
Do things then? Do you then watch an art form or a medium or a genre transition to the mainstream, and then have to say sort of?
I mean, this techno culture is in mainstream in Berlin because it's like many people even come to Berlin because of techno. But I think it's also people turned it into a commercial thing, and it didn't really, entwickelt in like 6 years the music in the clubs. And I saw Berlin culture before, like club culture before, and this is what's happening. It's not Berlin club culture, and it's never been culture for drugs or something. People, of course, would take drugs, but it never been like this. And people would come to listen to DJ, to music, not like nobody even understand what the hours, like 24 hours in one place.
That's interesting. You see the drug culture as being a newer addition, or?
I mean, the music is so stupid. Then you just take drugs and alcohol. I don't know.
I mean, it does. Yeah, it can help sometimes, I suppose. I guess that's also a difference between. Listening to techno or a DJ or going to a party and going to a museum.
It became so commercially, like kind of without the value, like musical value.
Is there a distinction between what is commercial and what is mainstream?
I wouldn't. So I'm not in this field. I'm not interested. So it's difficult to say. But as a club commission Vorstand, I had a possibility to see more how the lobbyist working, and it's. Mostly people, they are good artists, most of them very good managers, but mostly it's like they don't have so much understanding about mathematics and have, like, I think, problems with surviving at the moment.
Okay.
So, yeah. But commercially, I think that where you don't even see the owners in the club because they just drop anything which pays money, and so this probably doesn't have so much value for people too, as a culture.
Our next guest is a multimedia artist, designer, researcher, and teacher based in Berlin. He holds a PhD in fine arts from the University of Lisbon. He is interested in exploring digital technologies from a DIY approach, including creative coding and media materiality. Understanding the impacts of digital technologies in culture, society, and environment, his works range from experimental music, sound art, generative art, and audio-visual performance to experimental film, documentary, video art, net art, and art games. He is the author of Audio-Visual Disruption, Post-Digital Aesthetics in Contemporary Audio-Visual Arts, which came out last year. Please join me in welcoming to Radio Spaetkauf, Pedro Ferreira.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Pedro, it's interesting. DIY is something that, as like a child in the 90s was big for me. And it meant sort of, making zines with scissors and glue sticks. It also, it stands for do it yourself, but it was something that always was built around communities and sharing knowledge and sharing resources. It feels like today, DIY, does it mean something different as our tools have evolved more or as our communities have changed?
And that's a good question. DIY has been definitely transferred to digital media. Just think about cut and paste in any software that we use nowadays.
Oh, right.
So it's the same as your glue and scissors from analog realm. But yeah, I think nowadays what happens a lot online in terms of DIY is the share of crafts through, for example, YouTube tutorials. That's how people come together to make DIY making and crafts.
I genuinely love my guys sewing things on Instagram reels, and I really think I'm learning it, although I keep failing to thread the bobbin into the thing. But the fact that this becomes a social media or a YouTube where you're no longer going to the quote unquote knitting circle, does that change the way communities build around DIY?
I think so. Knowledge is quickly spread online. Yes, that's true. But in terms of offline spaces, they are still there, and actually they have been popping up more and more because younger generations are still interested to meet offline and to come together to learn about crafts and experiment, for example, with making zines again. There's a comeback on that. There's a comeback on printmaking, for example, cassette tapes, analog film, photography. Even self-made music instruments, it's also very present.
What do you think is pushing people back towards analog?
I think it's the saturation that we have nowadays of digital platforms that when all voices are speaking, no one is listening. So it gets hard to come together as a community if everyone speaks at the same time and no one is really listening.
So in the real world, things are a little more asynchronous or I suppose, or at least you're not drowned out?
I think the problem with the digital platforms is that people are drowned into scrolling forever, and that has a numbing psychic effect. So that makes people just not actual do things in physical space. But there's plenty of good things about online communities, for sure.
Excellent. We have one more guest to introduce before we turn this into a roundtable conversation. A journalist, writer, publisher, and lesbian activist born in West Berlin, now living and working in Berlin-Kreuzberg. A journalist focusing on LGBT issues since 1986. CEO and co-owner of Germany's biggest LGBT publishing house, Special Media SDL, that publishes the magazines Siegessäule, Queer in Berlin, and LMag, Germany's magazine for lesbians. As well as the world of journalism, she initiated the first Dyke March in Berlin together with the LMag team, which sparked a movement in Western Europe and inspired around 10 more Dyke Marches throughout Germany. Dyke March Berlin had its 10-year anniversary in 2023. She also makes independent films around sexuality. Du Darf's Airport, Fucking Different, Triple X, a short film, Blümchen Sex, was part of it. She's also been working for many years in the Berlin International Film Festival. Since 2007, she is a programmer and core organizer of the International Porn Film Festival Berlin. Please join me in very warmly welcoming to the stage Manuela Kay.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. One of the things that I think, we already sort of talked about throughout all of these different positions that people are coming from is as things move into the mainstream, it changes how we interact with them as subcultures become cultures. Right now we're coming up to the Pride, CSD. One of the things that, you hear a lot is people talking about, Stonewall, which was one of the original moments in the gay rights movement of the 20th century, was a riot. And now we have large-scale, family-friendly, corporately branded pride marches. Is there a loss when that happens? Is it a double-edged sword when we transition from Stonewall to the Bud Light Rainbow Convention?
That's the kind of a $1 million question, because on the one hand, we want to have more visibility and more acceptance, more representation out there, and that comes with a price. So if you stay within the subculture, as the word already implies, it's not very visible. It's a subculture. And we do have a good chance to go back into the subculture with the right wing on the rise and the backlash we have and all the attacks on gay prides worldwide. We might have riots again. And now you tell me, is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know.
It depends on who's rioting. Yes. Right. We have recently had in Brandenburg, an attack on a march that, I guess we should expect or come to. I don't know if that's something that is on the rise or not. When you think about the positives of a movement moving into the mainstream, or what is that? What is your contribution then? I mean, you're producing, magazines that are fed by advertising. It's free. Anyone can get it, and that's wonderful.
Yes, so our magazine, Siegessäule, it's the oldest still running queer magazine in Europe, as far as I know. It's been out there for 41 years now.
Okay.
And it's gone through quite some changes. It actually started, usually you have it's the other way around. So our magazine started to be sold, and now it's for free. And it's, distributed on more than 1,000 outlets in the city. So it does something for visibility, and it's free, so it's easy access. Even if people are somewhere in the closet, they can just grab it at their doctor's practice or in a barber shop or, in some random cafe. But the prices, of course, were dependent on the advertisement, and the advertisement is sometimes a bit tricky, and we do have limits. Like the final frontier for us, for example, would be the German army.
Okay.
That asked for advertisement in gay magazines, believe it or not, because they have a staffing problem, so they take everybody, even gay people now.
Okay.
And they asked, and we said no, and they advertised in other gay magazines that didn't have that rule. But other than that, of course, we have big car brands and, banks and other companies that you might not associate necessarily with, queer political issues. Mm-hmm. So they make possible that people have an easy access to a free queer magazine. So you can say it's a sellout, or you can say it's a possibility. I would agree to both, actually.
Okay, that's great. I guess you don't have a choice. When not to make you speak for your detractors, but at some point you're getting a letter to an editor that says, "I can't believe you're doing this," or not. Do you get negative feedback on having those brands in your magazine?
Not about the ads, more about the content. I mean, we live in Berlin, and we are defined by criticism and hate, and so we get a lot of criticism for everything.
Okay.
Either we write about it, or we get the criticism that we don't write about certain things, or why we write about it, who writes about it. And I mean, it's the general criticism from the queer community is we're too gay male oriented, we're too lesbian, we're too trans, everything is too young, everything is too old, everything is too commercial, it's not mainstream enough, so you get it all.
Right.
And you can't win, actually. So we just try to do our best.
It's too white
and
as well, you forgot
I think
to
in
say.
41 years we've covered about every issue that is out there. We covered every sexual orientation that ever existed. And so I think people just want to criticize for just the purpose of criticizing things. But with the ads, they learn to live. We hardly ever get criticism for that. Unlike, you mentioned it, the CSD, the Gay Pride March, the big one in Berlin that is totally over-commercialized and has these big cooperation trucks that, you know, don't make sense to me. Why would you have Ryanair or Deutsche Bank or Mercedes-Benz at a gay pride? That doesn't make sense to me, honestly.
I mean, it does. It does make me wonder, though. Is there a queer airline, or is there a brand that we would say like?
Well, I know that most employees at Lufthansa are queer, but that doesn't make it a queer airline necessarily, right?
I mean, all of the Lufthansa employees I know are queer. So then, is part of what you do in what you've created? So you've had the magazine for a long time. Then you introduced the Dijkmark. Then you're working on films that push limits. So is part of what you do expanding your platforms, moving on to the next thing so that you can bring in more cultures? Or how do you respond to the success and the mainstreaming of your magazines?
Well, you have to stay true to yourself. You have to stay true to your standards. That's the most important thing. And no matter how much advertising we have, we're still very conservative when it comes to the journalist standards, morals. So we totally work by the German Pressekodex that says you have to clearly divide between advertisement and editorial content. So we never, ever sell editorial content, unlike some other, even daily newspapers do that by now. We don't do that.
Right.
So we stay true to ourselves. It might not look like it always because it's, you know, when it's glossy and good looking, it doesn't mean it's not political anymore.
Okay, so you don't have to go out and make zines just to escape criticism. I want to ask the audience also now to just give a round of applause for everyone. It's been so long since the first person was able to speak.
Radio Spaetkauf. Berlin News in English.
Let's talk about making money for the individuals. Like as Bianca pointed out, you said that the average income for self-employment in response, the average was something under 19,000 per year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, like you have to be like it's. As I said, like studying solo entrepreneurs is quite a tough cookie, I would say. That's why we also have to be very specific. So we're talking about the labor income, which is like Arbeitseinkommen in German. So it's like the, it's a little bit more specific, but it doesn't matter. It's quite low.
Right. So, but you're looking at this sort of in a way as an industry comprised of these people.
Yeah, we're looking at the culture and creative industries as a group of like the distinctiveness is that all people in the culture and creative industries, from architecture to games to visual arts, are producing something unique, something new. This is like they all have in common.
So, but it seems like, you know, we think of it as like, when we talk about subcultures, as like a minority of people, but like how big is this industry in Germany?
Yeah, so we could, if we like put them all together and if we have like this definition term, there's an official definition for the culture and creative industries. And if we compare like the Bruttowertschöpfung, which is, I think, what was it? Revenue? No, it wasn't, sorry.
I mean, we're talking about...
Yeah, it's like we're talking about the gross value added. That's the
gross value added.
It's Bruttowertschöpfung in English.
Okay.
And it's like more than in 2023 it was like more than 120 billion euros.
Okay.
They produced, and in this sense, they're bigger than the engineering industry and the chemical industry. So if you pool all the
Right.
creatives together, they're actually huge. And this is also what we are trying with our research to tell politics, that it's not like some people making their arts in their little atelier or something. It's like a huge industry, which is, and everybody kind of belongs, or everybody kind of relies on creativity. It's like the chair we are sitting on, somebody designed it. So
Well,
we are
your
not.
chair, mine. I have this one. It's not.
I don't
You got the
know.
cute one. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about, I think, around over half a million people in Germany, right?
Yeah.
So the panel then, when it comes to figuring out, is it important that we figure out how to raise the wealth amongst this group of people, and how do you approach that, and how is that a part of your practices or what you do? I don't know, Pedro, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. I think it's important to say I need to have a freelance job so that I make money. I barely make any money from my artworks. It's mainly on commissions. The possibility of doing a PhD studies also just happened because I got a grant from the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology. And with that grant, it allowed me to produce after the book that came from my thesis. But yeah, I still need to do freelance work that is not directly related to my artistic practice. So I live in this duality of, on the one hand, trying to make experimental media, and on the other hand, and survive,
Right.
monetary. And on the other hand, I need to take, freelance work.
I mean, experimental media seems like inherently not something you can do for profit without proven profit, right? I mean, if it's avant-garde, how does that work? Or I guess at one time, tell me more about how that works.
Right. I mean, if we look at advertisement nowadays, a lot of the effects that come out from the imagery culture that we live in, these came from probably some avant-garde artists that experiment something and put that out, probably not making any money out back then. But it then transfers to culture at large, and it becomes part of visual culture or media culture. That's
right. But the way it works for you now means having what I think Bianca's report cards was a hybrid income. So you've got your day job, which is still some arts tangentially or whatever, but it's not maximizing the time you're spending on making noise music. So is there people you're seeing or solutions you see to how to make that easier for you to focus on the creative and the avant-garde?
I think it's a good lesson also to do work that is not related with my artistic work necessarily, but then that gives me some kind of push to continue to look into what I want to say with art, what kind of perceptions I want to say with making media.
Erikah, when it comes to like managing a space and thinking about helping artists to produce avant-garde or subcultural or works that aren't commercially viable yet, how do you make it work?
So in 14, 15 years, we established a very professional team and space with, we have very good sound, and we're known for good sound in Panke. And though we are like, let's say we could compare to OM, the Tresor club, which is the same big. They have like also very good sound system and very nice collective working there. So their prices are like more expensive than Panke offers. And we decided to stay like this because we work with the communities, and we want to offer them a possibility to do it cheaper. So we collaborate. We are not renting the space. We have like we have Umsatz or like circulation deal, And yeah, it is a problematic now because circulation doesn't run after the Haushaltssperre. And after the last year, autumn, like after summer, it didn't come back. It's like most of the incomes of gastronomy,
right?
You can take it from liquor sellers, restaurants,
right,
and then cultural places and clubs, of course. And you can see many clubs closing at the moment. And but still, so this is the way. Though it's like we might need to work more to be capable to offer this possibility, express themselves in the very high the high quality place and service.
Is it important then that people like you are curating beyond the mainstream, but within the same capability of the music and sound of being this high quality? Because oftentimes underground clubs, or you go to a basement show and the sound quality is worse, and you have to go and find that music in a place that's maybe not perfect for it. So is there, when you're not maximizing profit but you still want to maintain, is it important to not compromise the way in which you're displaying these things?
I always believe that, first of all, you create something and then you think about money. And normally if you do a good job with love, it's come back with much more than you would expect, let's say. But, and then again, I don't, like people ask, so let's talk about business. And I'm like, this is culture. What kind of business you are talking about? Because for me, it's like important to pay the rent,
right,
that everybody's safe and people paid for their work. And the quality question, I also always like check to sell good quality drinks. For example, I have really like from the winery wine. So in the club, people are very surprised that they get such good wine.
Right.
And the price is not bigger than right, even smaller than other places.
So is there
I
then
think
a,
this is the way how I can make my work for people to be capable to do their job.
Right.
And of course, if you have a good sound and the musician performing, of course the result will be better.
Is there a paradox between you not looking for it to eschew the business, to say I don't want to look at the business, but we're trying to raise the income of these artists? So if you were more if you focused on raising money, would that somehow benefit those artists?
I'm not booking the artist. I'm giving the space.
Right.
So they can make the ticket more expensive.
Okay.
And then get more money for artists.
All right.
And I'm not having no discussion about anything like that. They have the door. This is the collaboration. I have the bar, and this is the way how Panke is operating.
Right. Manuela, what do you see as someone in journalism and in activism? How do you approach subculture and minority voices and independence and things that are lesser known, in terms of like what is the role of the magazine or your other work?
It's tricky because once it's in the magazine, it's not so subcultural anymore. And now with social media, we face a big challenge that a lot of events and parties that consider themselves super cool and super, underground, they don't even want to be mentioned in our magazines because that kind of spoils
Blow up the
to
spot.
the mainstream.
Okay.
Which is annoying in a way because we want to tell what's out there, what's on the offer. And on the other hand, I can totally understand that people want to stay in their own bubble, but that if you stay in your own bubble, we all know that's kind of boring and will die out after a while. So it's kind of a challenge. Plus, as soon as something gets too big, like I can say that from my other activities such as Dyke March or Porn Film Festival, those two things are super successful to my own surprise. And now the expectations are super high. They want the cool underground groove, and at the same time, the audience or the participants want it to be super professional because it's with there 10 or 15,000 people attending, and they want everything to be perfect and a safe space here, and they want to be welcomed with all groups there are within the LGBT community. But at the same time, it should feel totally underground and totally, super radical, political. And how can you do that?
Yeah. Can you have an underground movement with 15,000 people attending an event?
Yeah, that's the question. No, you can't. Actually, you can't. Either it's small and it's a bit illegal, then it's underground, or it is big and successful and visible and not underground anymore. You have to decide.
When you said you were surprised at how successful these projects were. Were you also a little disappointed? I mean,
no, never, because it's all volunteer work. Speaking of income and things, most years of my life I spent in weird jobs to finance my volunteer work for underground projects that are now very successful but don't make any big money, and do that for more people than less is to me satisfying. So it's not a disappointment at all.
So I assume like the state plays a role in Dyke March now at this point, at least in terms of setting up the route or things like that.
The state?
Or
no.
No.
We do that. Up until now, we live in a democracy, and we have the freedom of assembly in our constitution, and we just
Erikah's
we just have to announce it with the police. But
they administrate the shutting down of the streets or the
no. No. Have you never organized a demonstration?
Well,
no,
they're always there. Every time I'm there, they're there.
They're there for protection.
Right.
That's what they say. Of course, they're also there to beat people up if they feel like it.
Well, that's still protecting something or someone, just not the people they're beating up.
Yeah.
It's either, protecting their egos or...
I could do without that.
Yeah,
but,
no, I'm not pro-beating.
I could do without that kind of protection.
Right.
But also, we mentioned the attacks on smaller queer events in Brandenburg.
Right.
If there's no police, people don't feel safe. I don't ever feel safe when I see the police, to be honest, but a lot of queer people nowadays trust the police more than other queer people, so they want them, to be there for protection reasons, but they might also be for, to scare away the neo-Nazis.
Right. So, there was a time when we just relied on violent subcultures that were on our side to scare away the Nazis, but it feels like that's less accessible now.
Yeah, that has gone.
The black bloc isn't there.
And you mentioned Stonewall before. I mean, Stonewall was a riot against the police.
Right.
And that's still, especially in the US, a big discussion. Should the police... people who work in the police in uniforms take part in gay pride marches because they were the reasons why it all started, because it was against them. So, we've come a long way.
But what I want to lead to, and this is really for everyone, is there seems to always be misunderstandings between like the institutions, whether those are press and media or museums or the state or really just the general public, in terms of what artists and subcultures and undergrounds need and want and what they're getting. So it seems like it's very hard to match up the needs and then with the expectations of whether it's commercial money or state money. Do you understand what I mean by that? Like, do you find that when you are approaching institutions that you're getting what you need, or when open calls go out that they make sense in terms of your practices?
I can answer to that. I often don't like to answer to open calls, for example, because they are thematic usually.
Thematic?
Yes, and that constrains what I could possibly create. Of course, if that suits with what I've been doing so far as an artist, is great. But it should be also part of curators to look around and see what artists are doing and putting them on the spot and challenging them to create new things.
Right. So an open call is not necessarily like a good use of curatorial. It's a sort of
Right.
a lazy way of doing curatorial
and
work.
actually, what I've been seeing around now in Berlin is that people are asking for fees for people to apply to open calls for art shows, and it's like this is reversing the roles. So the artist not being paid, and plus has to pay a fee to participate in some art show.
Right. It seems like also physical spaces tend to be offered around certain themes or tools. Like you can find a room for dance, but maybe not for wrestling in the artistic sense of it. I'm not sure. Like when Panke was formed, what when the Verein, what came first? The Verein. How did you initiate the space? Was it
Accident?
Okay.
Yeah, it was like just a collaboration with some people with whom we didn't work out really, and then I took over the contract and kept this thing going. I don't know if you said it's for everyone, the question before. I just wanted like this misunderstanding.
Yes.
I mean, the misunderstanding is actually like how I see it nowadays world at the moment, and I think this is going to be more and more
with the
like what happened, like all this cognitive dissonance and schizophrenia nowadays, and what Germany is going. It looks like white art for white people, and all these rules on the foundation, like anti-Semitism and all this crazy madness is something which changed completely. So now they also want to put jury, which is more diverse. It's mean then more white men inside, because all the queer and transgender people, they are too much. They are not sure if they really know what they do. So they want to put white art critics into the jury.
So
white male
right,
critics, so that it's more diverse.
And by they, who do you mean?
And the art.
When you're saying they
fundings and jury in the funding. It's
so the funding.
Yeah, they want to make it more diverse, more white men inside.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
And this is what we are probably facing, and so there won't be any alternative underground. You will have rules. You will have to work for them and do art they want. And it's going more and more this direction.
Is there anything we can do about that?
Of course, this is where communities coming, people supporting each other, and this is how we work. With 9 years, Panke didn't get any cent from any fundings. That was only supporting from the communities, people who needed a space, who needed a home, and this is how it works. It's good for us, maybe for people who was living on the fundings. They might have like maybe more problems.
When it comes to finding a connection between artists and the audiences for them, it seems like in some ways we're living in a more democratic situation, like social media. We're allowed, there's more ways to get your voice out there, but the voice gets out there maybe sometimes drowned out. Are we living now in a moment where things are different for independent artists? Are things changing? Are they getting worse, better? Or is it sort of, it's always been starving artists and it always will be?
I think I'm too young to answer that question.
Well, you're the right age to answer. Like, what is the role of social media? Or
I want to say that there are alternatives to mainstream social media, and for example, the internet has been a DIY medium when it started in the 90s. For example, people would make their own personal websites.
Right.
People engage in different ways than we engage nowadays with mainstream social media. And there's also a network called the Fediverse that is these decentralized servers that come together to have an alternative to the same platforms we have nowadays. For example, Mastodon is an alternative to Twitter. There's Pixelfeld that's an alternative to Instagram. And the thing is that these servers are run by small people, and that they have their own rules, and they have a code of conduct that reverses the role of big tech dictating what happens on social media. So
right, at least for now. I mean,
yeah.
The idealism of the '90s internet, which I was the internet I had, the sort of Mondo, the 3000 thing of utopic, free, but you did have to DIY your websites and make your own websites, which meant only programmers had websites or people who could hire programmers. So now anyone now can have their own website on some platform, but it ends up being sort of not so unique experience.
Right. I think that's when open source really becomes important, so that anyone can just reuse the code and change it and modify it however they want for their own needs, and still have a good quality website out there that didn't need engineering skills. And a lot of our technologies nowadays are still based on open source protocols as well. So that's another alternative there.
Okay. So then what is the role of either the larger community, the mainstream communities, institutions in helping to support independent artists or niche cultures? What have been the successes that you've seen?
I like when big institutions invite people who are not represented in these places and make, for example, a festival that is curated by an independent curator who knows about the scenes.
Okay.
That's a good way to transfer money from these big institutions to...
by relying on independent curation.
Yeah, and collaboration.
I want to go back to your study, because I think there was a lot more in there to get into. But you did want to say something earlier when I was asking about like state support. I think you were about to jump in.
Well, about state support, what we recommended in our study was that, first of all, I said income is low, so you kind of have to, or like what we recommended was to raise, you have to raise the income side. And one first step in our opinion is or like what comes from our study is to raise the societal awareness of the monetary value of the work of artists. So this is like the first step. And one thing that was done already by the BKM, we don't have officially a cultural ministry, but what they did now is to introduce minimum binding fee standards for like. When they give funding, they introduced now these minimum fee standards, and we recommended that it should be like this could help, that also artists don't have to work below the minimum wage, for instance. Like these are just two parts that we would recommend that could help to raise the income of artists.
One of the other things that came from the study and from the answers of these respondents was that they had wished that they'd had financial education as part of their art education.
Yeah, that was kind of like surprising to me a little bit, because like I thought that that it would be less people who answered like this. But if you're like an artist or a musician, you're trying to be a musician, it's in the end very unlikely that you're get a long-term employment somewhere. So you kind of like have to know like all the basics of like social security, what to do, how to do it. And I see that people probably are not that interested when they're studying. They're more into their subject. They want to develop their art. But at the same time, I think it's crucial if you wish to make a living from your art, then you kind of like have to dive deeper in that. And I think the universities and education institutions, they should help these people, or should like raise the awareness so that they have it easier also to have a fair income in the end. So I think this is also a responsibility not only of the artists, but also of the institutions around.
I mean, I guess is it a more ideal situation to make it so that artists don't have to worry about money as opposed to teaching them how to? Maybe that's for the rest of the panel.
Probably,
I need to
yeah.
ask the economist about that.
It's hard for me to answer. Yeah, probably the others have an idea on that.
Manuela, when it comes to these interactions between subculture and culture, and you work with artists, with creators, whether through the festival, through the magazine, through your other work, who are coming up, and so what do you do to make it inclusive and fair?
Inclusive for who?
Well, that's a great question, because there is, at some point, as Erikah mentioned, inclusivity can be damaging if you're trying to maintain a subculture or an underground.
Well, if we look at something like the Porn Film Festival, which is having its 20th edition this year, from the very beginning we discussed, should we apply for funding? And we're on the safe side, because with the title Porn Film Festival, we would never ever get public money. So that question answered itself, basically.
Well, it's still a film festival.
It is.
That's better. I do a podcast festival, and they're just like, no.
However, we decided never to apply for funding because we want to stay independent. And I personally think that other people than the state or the taxpayers should pay for art and film, if you want, or for porn. I mean, nobody asks, if you visit a porn site and you pay for certain content, you don't ask the state to pay for that for you. So why should we ask the state for public funding for a porn film festival? That doesn't make sense to me. I think the people who want to see the films, they pay for the tickets and that's it. And
But that means that you have to make porn which is for enough people to pay for it. Do people with non-mainstream tastes in porn? I really wish we could just say art. Non-mainstream tastes in art also deserve films made in a high quality and high standards.
And we now have quite a few sponsors from the porn industry that never even expect that we show their films, because they come more from a not real mainstream, but not totally underground and not totally DIY. They have like online platforms, and you have paid content there, and they sponsor the festival because they are fully convinced that we give porn a better name, and that pays back kind of around the corner to them.
To the people giving it a worse name.
Yeah. But that's how it works. And we're all totally fine with not being funded and not being somehow attached to the state or policies. The change in the Minister of Culture, I couldn't care less when it comes to our festival, because
Joe's not going to hook you up.
No. So I think what we need to learn in Germany, that the state or the institutions don't have to do everything. And when I hear people need to be educated to how to deal with money, it's probably a good thing to learn at school from a very young age. There are institutions like banks, and you can open an account, and this is, a deposit, this is minors or whatever they should learn. But I don't think it's the responsibility of any institution to explain to someone how to write an invoice or how to make a tax income balance. If you don't know how to do that, you're simply not able to live. Sorry, but I don't want anybody to have to explain that to me from a state institution. That is, I don't know, ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I think the idea is that if you're getting job training, or if you're getting training as a creative, and your income is tied to that, and as opposed to someone who is getting a training in an occupation where your income and your more importantly your pension is tied into established systems, that the vocational training then can be separated from the financial training. But if someone's being trained to do something independently, and they live in Germany, or even worse, live in the United States, there's no way for them to be able to get the same kind of life that someone who's getting vocational training and would get a salary would. So if you become a plumber for the state, or a janitor at Prognos, you have a lot of other things keeping you safe in your old age or in your young age that an artist wouldn't. So I think it's a little bit apples to oranges there. In terms of whether or not, I mean, I certainly took me a few years to figure out how to write an invoice, but I've got it down. I mean, it's close. I don't know. Like, what's a Stoyer ID versus a tax ID?
I have daily questions from freelance writers. Oh, I don't know how to write an invoice. And I'm sorry, then I explain.
Right.
Taught
but what if
someone
else told them you wouldn't have to do it?
Offer use ChatGPT or IE.
Yeah.
Now it's like all this problem solved.
So easy today, yeah.
It's like it's a bad news. We will have a generation. They will have no idea how to count how much money they need to earn. But the IE will be just like they put all the costs and they like calculate all the budget plan. And like,
okay,
I'm
great.
sure.
And I was scared of AI ruining
Just
the lives
like
of artists.
they're going to do
the taxes.
They will probably commit the suicide.
I mean, I guess I would love maybe another way to look at this is if they got taught to make invoices in their writing classes, they wouldn't have to bother the editor.
Who says they ever visited a writing class?
Okay, fair enough. So let's talk about AI then for a second. When we're looking at some of the work you're doing, can AI compete with you as in any of what you're creating?
I mean, I'm the worst person to judge my own work. So,
okay.
But what I can tell about what I've seen from AI and what artists are doing, for example, in academic conference setting, so I just see a replication of past aesthetics. So there's an AI that replicates Salvador Dali. There's an AI that replicates these kinds of aesthetics that are already established and part of our culture. So what artists are very good at is to come up with new aesthetics and come up with new solutions to make things perceptible. So I think artists will, in the end up coming up with their own AIs and their own data sets that will train to make their own artworks. I mean,
so is it then you see it as a tool? I mean, there was a time when graphic designers meant they had to buy letters and stick them onto a thing and make a print, and then now they can download fonts. And I don't think that's the worst thing, but does it fall into that category? Maybe.
I think yes, AI will, in this creative field, will be used to there's an image that needs to be put here. Let's just scrape it from a repository. That's what after being everything transferred to digital, that's what creatives did. So nowadays they will just ask a chatbot to generate that for them. So I think, okay, that creates an image, but it's not that all images are art. And I think we can agree that there's a difference between advertisement and art, even if they use the same tools. So
yeah.
Artists use tools to make images, but they are not necessarily the same when an advertisement or design agency produce an image.
Bianca, what was the biggest takeaway from, or the impact you'd like to see the most after having compiled and put together this report?
Actually, we didn't look at AI or
something.
No,
I don't mean in terms of AI. I mean for the report in general. Like, what is the key thing that you would like people to learn from it?
I would say that, now we put everything together, and it's important. Like artists have little money, but still there's things we can do about it. So it's not I think in the bigger picture, it's not just like the poor artists. Of course, they have little income, but it's not that people are unsatisfied or something. They're unsatisfied with their income, but they're not unsatisfied with their work. I mean, here on the panel, we've heard how passionate people are about what they're doing, and that it's very rewarding and very valuable in other ways than just earning money. So I think we showed that there are things to do, there are things to change also in terms of social security, that it's, for instance, make it easier for artists to assess also for instance, Grundrente or something, so that it's easier for them to assess pensions, even though they have many different jobs, many different employments. So it's harder for them to fit in, or most of them that just don't fit in the social security system.
Right. I mean, there was a system that wasn't built around independent artists or freelancers
it's
or
so
any
complicated.
of that.
It's so complicated, so different from artist to artist. So yeah.
So the systems in place need to become a little more pragmatic and realistic about what it is today.
Yeah, and understand more what how the artistic work functions in a way.
And in terms of looking at the industry, and I don't love that term, but I think it's useful in terms of communicating with policymakers. It seems like there's also, you mentioned the sort of the product of it, but there's a lot of intangibles. Berlin's economic renaissance was driven by art and culture and music, in many people's opinion. So is there a way that we can look at the use of expanding this group? Because we're talking about, maybe it should be more people in this business, but this is a value to this. I mean, is there an argument to be made there?
I don't know about that. I think there are many people working in the creative industries. What we just see is that in some areas it's harder to find new stuff or new talents. And responding to what also Erikah said, she's providing a space for people where people can explore. And I think these spaces are so important also for professionalizing of artists. So to answer this in this way, that we should not forget that people today also think twice if they want to become an artist or if they want to run a club or something. You have to have these smaller spaces where people can learn and explore. And I think this is something also public should provide for, because it's also for all of us. It's important to go there and to explore, and it helps us in all our jobs, even they're not in the artistic sphere.
And we're living in a city where physical space is being gobbled up very, very quickly. So that is a thing where the state can make an intervention. I mean, the state still has a lot of spaces that could be made available. Manuela, let's go back to Stonewall again. This is a long time before RuPaul's Drag Race had franchises in every country. And, as we look now into the queer art scene, and we see work that is avant-garde or pushing boundaries or far outside of what is known, is that still being generated? Are there still bars and clubs that are generating artwork and culture that's pushing back against a culture that's oppressive at times?
I'm kind of, to be honest, I don't think that the people who started the riots in Stonewall considered themselves artists. They were a lot of trans people, but they were mostly sex workers.
Right.
You can consider that an art, of course, but it's not. There was nothing artsy about.
We're not talking about
Stonewall.
drag shows, right?
Oh, okay, but
we're not talking about that. Yeah,
that was not even allowed in the 60s in the US. I think that came later. But if we look at for example, the Vaginal Davis exhibit at Martin Gropiusbau, I think that's a good example for somebody who kind of made it with drag art into into a huge, big public exhibition space. And comes from a very underground, very political, kind of, radical drag, trans art community. And so that is possible, but it has to, at least today, where clubs are not, or even bars, but when in the time of Stonewall, the bar was the main meeting point for people that belong to subcultures, and there, this whole revolution kind of began. Revolutions don't start in bars and clubs today. They start somewhere else, maybe in ateliers, in art ateliers. And only if they become visible, like in a place like Martin Gropiusbau, for example, we have the same thing, then I'm sure people have criticized Vaginal for being mainstream now, being after, 150 years of working, finally being visible, and you're gone mainstream. I'm sure that happened, and it's sad, and it's because it's a success to be there for her. And On the other hand, of course, it's out of their own bubble, and it's out of your comfort zone, and you have to be confronted with straight couples that look at it and make weird jokes about it or totally misunderstand everything. It's annoying, but that's the price you pay for visibility. And I think it still happens that especially trans people and drag artists are recognized, but they're also sold out in a way to represent something like, when it's, drag race, that's good, but if it's more political than that, we don't want to hear about that.
Right. So, I mean, as well-established gay bars, we see some of them are closing or suffering, low attendance, or Schwul is in trouble. I've seen, some of the old leather bars have closed down. Is part of that they play less of a role in the culture than they used to?
Yes, because it's so mainstream, and the backlash is also like people are retreating into their privacy, and they fight more for their private little happiness and for little core families. And like I always say, queer people are assimilating with the straight world too much and try to be the better straights and have like little core families that imitate a straight lifestyle. And that is not underground. That is just assimilation in its worst form, as far as I'm concerned. And so people who have children at home go to clubs less, and people who want to, work on their careers and think that is more important than having fun night outs, they ruin places like Schwutz because they don't go there anymore. They don't spend money, and then young people are taught it's bad to drink alcohol. So all these sober people, I mean, it's everybody's individual choice, of course.
You can have very expensive mates.
Yeah, but sober people ruin clubs and bars. That's a fact, right?
If your business model is alcohol-based.
If the others who do drink stay at home as well, I mean, who pays for the drinks then? And public places need to live of audience, and it's not the task of the state to pay for that too. It's our thing to keep places alive, whether you go to Panke or you support an artist or you go to a film festival. Capitalism is the reason for all evil, but we do live in capitalism still.
Yeah.
And therefore everybody has some money to spend somewhere to support subcultures.
Except for the artists, in this case, on average. That's an interesting paradox that you brought up. Capitalism is the root of all evils, but you'd like the kids to learn to deal with it. Is that the message?
No, I do like the kids to learn it, but not adults to not be able to, in their 40s, to write an invoice.
Did this happen today? Did you? This feels very fresh. So Pedro and Erikah, when we look at the impact of museums or subcultures and resources like spaces that are not just income, and all of this to me seems to be about who's arbitrating, like who gets to be an artist, who gets to make money, where that line is between someone who's producing a show, producing artwork for themselves, or making it their full-time thing, making expression a part of their hobby or something they do for themselves versus the public. And all of that to me is a very, very much at the heart of what I'm curious about. Like what is the role, what do we, all of us, people here today, people listening, do to make sure that everyone has access to expression, to create expression, and to participate and be an audience member and to see something new that changes their perceptions?
I think nowadays everyone has the potential to be an artist. The digital media has democratized the tools of production, for example. Anyone can participate. Yeah, I truly believe that if anyone has enough time to create something, they can be an artist in the most broad understanding of the word. So to craft and to make.
Okay. But I believe time is money, so that I'm not sure how that works out. Erikah, how do you encourage people to like become a part of a scene or to get started, either as to walk in the door on either side?
I just have like the two most important words I use the most now. It's like education and psychotherapy.
Okay.
Like, otherwise, because it's like it's really falling apart. People don't have. They are not interested. They don't have any educational background. And then there are all these media, social, whatever, technological, they just manipulate as they want. And I can like totally prove you can be an amazing artist, and then you're like, nobody buys my art. It's like, fuck bureaucracy. Like something like this. I don't know. I think like,
Into the mic, yeah.
It's also, people want to have like a fee, and then it's like, okay, so, but what you offer? Do you offer like 200 people gonna come and see? Because I can't organize events and pay from my pocket. And these artists, like many times, they are mistaken they are good artists and they have to earn a lot of money. And they don't do anything. They just like, I don't know, play games at home and just like, I don't know. I'm not artist. I don't know, everybody should love what they do their work. And if they have like psychological problems, go to have a little bit of support and like, I don't know, smoke a joint. And then, it's really hard to say because the things what's happening at the moment, what I see, because I was born in occupation and we were dehumanized and there was the system we didn't trust anything, education, law system, politics, newspapers and stuff. And I came here, I learned like, oh yeah, this is how it is to be citizenship, like how to, even if it's evil, but you vote for like at least evil, to do not give the vote for big evil. And this is when now I see, it's like really like Soviet Union is coming back. And everybody is like, yeah, I'm not gonna go to vote. And yes, here you are, I have this.
Education, psychotherapy, vote, and don't play video games too much because then no one will show up to your
Don't
opening.
be moron.
Try not to be a moron, I guess. Anything last anyone wants to add before we wrap up this conversation? There was a lot left on the table for all of you, I know. I will make sure that in the show notes we have links to everyone's work and everything that they've got coming up. And also for everyone here, we have now go have some drinks and food and we continue the conversation. I want to quote my mom wrote me an email today, and I'm going to say what she said because my mommy is a poet and has some nice things to say. This is how she signed off on her email to me and how I think I'll sign off this episode. Keep free thinking on the air, in the air. Love, Mom. Guys, thanks for showing up today. Thank you to all of our guests, to everyone here at EAB. Thank you so much.
Spaetkauf. Berlin News in English.